Well, Bexley resident who recently turned 103 played a very important role in completing a mission that would be long remembered as a turning point in the space race. Storm Team 4 meteorologist Ben Gelber sat down with the NASA veteran and his son to learn more about the complexities of the Apollo 11 program.
Yeah, Kyle, 54 years ago today, the assistant to the director of space medicine at NASA, Herb Brownstein, was at launch control, and his responsibility was to help ensure the safety of the astronauts' equipment as they embarked on the historic mission to the moon.
Liftoff on Apollo 11.
I was one of those people who monitors the astronauts until they took off.
Herb Brownstein was one of 10 people at NASA who could halt the final countdown 10 seconds before liftoff while viewing the launch through a camera system. He was part of the medical team that had to be certain that the flow of oxygen and the water system for drinking and cooling were working properly, and that wasn't the only health concern.
Since we were going to the moon, they wanted to make sure that we would cover the possibility that the astronauts or the astronaut equipment would bring back something from the moon that would contaminate.
After leaving the U.S. Army Air Corps involved in aircraft operations following World War II, Herb went into private business, later joining NASA in the early 1960s during the Mercury program.
The urgency of what you were doing, you missed that. It's the first time man had been on the moon. Nervous to the extent that you might fail.
Barry Brownstein, who lives in Clintonville, is extraordinarily proud of his father, who is very humble about the critical work he did, making sure his sons were included in the exciting events.
He also took us to the launch of Apollo 11, which I'll remember for the rest of my life. He's been my hero my whole life when he was in the space program.
NASA later reported that about 650 million people around the world were glued to their television sets when astronaut Neil Armstrong from Wapakoneta departed the lunar module Eagle and stepped on the surface of the moon.
Just an incredible story, and 103 years old.
Just
still making an impact.
Wonderful gentleman.
Yeah.
Great memory and such an important role in American history, and so humble about it. Was just kind of very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Just make sure everything went well. And we were, of course, in the throes of the space race for exploration. We were still in the middle of the Cold War back in the 60s. I'm old enough, I guess, to remember watching on TV along with hundreds of millions of Americans and hundreds of millions more around the world.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Brownstein made it happen.
And we were all transfixed. It was just
Yes.
something we never thought we would see. So, and that anniversary again, 54 years ago tonight.